Some of the scariest places in the world look completely like ordinary or even beautiful buildings and structures. It's only when you learn the history, the parts that still remain there in the shadows, that the real reason why they're called one of the scariest places on Earth is revealed. Number 5. It seems every city has a haunted hotel or two within its boundaries. London, unsurprisingly, has many. So, when Langham Hotel earned the title of London's most haunted hotel, it put itself high on many people's lists of most terrifying locations. The hotel first opened its doors in 1865. It boasts past guests such as Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Charles Dickens, and even Diana, Princess of Wales and Emperor Napoleon III. It would be cliché to say that the hotel is so nice and extravagant that the guests never want to leave, even in death, but this isn't the case with those that have visited more recently. In 2014, the hotel made headlines when the English cricket team came face to face with supernatural activity. The wives of many of the players refused to stay at the hotel after hearing stories of the ghosts that lurked there, and a number of the players changed rooms to try to get even an ounce of sleep. In the 1970s, a BBC announcer was sent running from his room after waking to find a ghost at the foot of his bed. When he told his coworkers about what he had seen, many claimed to have seen the same thing or something very similar. There are at least 7 different entities that are said to stay at the hotel. They range from the relatively innocent, such as a butler who's still trying to serve guests on the 3rd floor, to the terrifying, like a man with a gaping head wound that wanders the corridors. The ghost the BBC announcer had supposedly seen was that of a Victorian-era doctor who took the life of a woman in room 333. He then took his own life and is now locked to the room, though apparently only in the month of October. Room 333 is the focus of much of the scary activity, but guests in other rooms have reported stifling temperatures and taps that turn on and off by themselves, among other things. Number 4. When the Industrial Revolution triggered the growth of the Russian city of St. Petersburg, the Bethonie Canal, and sorry for the bad pronunciation, became the unofficial border between the haves and have-nots. The canal had served as the boundary of the original city, and the urban sprawl which popped up on the other side housed the poor factory workers and those who had come to the city to try to improve their lives. Conditions here were terrible, resembling something out of a Charles Dickens novel. Many were driven to take their own lives to escape, and the bridges over the canal were a popular choice. The canal and the bridges that crossed it received morbid nicknames, but rumors swirled that it was more than poverty that drew people to end their lives there. Even today, people continue to end their lives in the canal. According to those that survived the attempt, they didn't know why they had tried. It was like something drew them into the water. Some say it's the souls of other victims who took their lives here wanting company. Others say it's the same supernatural force that convinced those earlier victims. According to some sources, the canal had already attracted paranormal activity before it had finished being built. Workers complained of severe headaches and other illnesses. Some were filled with a rage that encouraged them to take the lives of their coworkers. Still, construction pushed on. Even when workers found stone slabs, which seemed to be the remains of tombs, construction would not stop. Workers were ordered to destroy the slabs. Supposedly, any archaeological investigation into where they had come from would only slow construction. Who those disturbed tombs could have belonged to has been the subject of debate for legends. One story allegedly took place in the 13th century, with Swedish knights attacking tribes in the area, taking the lives of women and shamans. In another story, Vikings who'd been converted to Christianity took the lives of priests who'd been practicing human sacrifice. Whether these stories of more ancient deaths have anything to do with the modern activity, there does seem to be something sinister residing there. Ghostly figures in hoods became such a common phenomenon that police investigated, believing that there may have been a cult responsible for the bodies that were constantly being found in the canal. But no figure was ever caught. In 1967, a serial killer worked in the area, taking the lives of 5 women before he was caught. The incident, though unrelated to the canals, only added to the area's haunting history. Number 3. Some believe that massive amounts of human suffering can imprint these emotions onto the environment around them. The pain and terror linger even after the horrific acts have stopped, and can manifest years or even decades later. If this is how ghosts are created, it's not surprising that Eastern State Penitentiary is believed to be the most haunted location in the US. The prison was built in 1820, claiming to be the first true penitentiary. Everything about it was designed to make inmates feel true regret for their actions. At first, this was through complete isolation, left alone in cells and forced to wear hoods whenever they were allowed out. No interaction with other prisoners or the outside world, and minimum interaction with guards. Critics claimed that this was inhumane and the system was eventually abandoned, but things didn't get much better for prisoners. Cruel punishments like the iron gag were introduced. Prisoners would be drenched, then left out in freezing conditions until ice formed on their skin. Some would be placed in the so-called mad chair, where their limbs were bound so tightly that blood circulation would be cut off. More than 1,000 people are known to have lost their lives at the prison, either through disease, mistreatment, by their own hands, or the hands of the cellmates. It equates to roughly 1 in every 80 prisoners to ever set foot inside. Countless more would spend their last years in the now infamous prison as they served on death row. The prison closed for good in 1971. Despite being deemed a National Historic Landmark, it quickly fell into a state of disrepair, and today the building is in ruins, unnerving visitors even without the stories of prisoners who were left. Guards, former inmates, and visitors have claimed to have experienced supernatural activity at the site. Disembodied voices, laughter, and footsteps, shadowy silhouettes seen out of the corner of your eye, visions of ghostly faces. These stories have attracted thrill seekers and TV shows from across the country. Officially, tour guides claim the prison isn't haunted, though they do have a haunted house attraction. They say stories of ghosts distract from the very real suffering of men, women, and children who were held there. But not everyone agrees. One disturbing story comes from a man named Gary Johnson, who helped maintain the ruins in the 1990s. On one occasion, he was about to enter cell block 4 when a negative, horrible energy gripped him so tightly that he could not move. Tormented faces appeared on cell walls when he eventually went inside, beckoning him further. Today, the museum is open to tours. Many experience no paranormal activity whatsoever, but with some visitors falling physically ill after a trip, it may not be worth finding out the truth for yourself. Number 2. Lawang Sewu literally means 1,000 doors. Though the building in Indonesia does not literally have 1,000 doors, it's designed to give that impression. However, that doesn't seem to have been enough for countless tormented souls to escape this scary location where their lives came to an end. The building was originally designed to be the headquarters of the Dutch East Indies Railway Company. It was built in the early 1900s, with Building B coming several years after the first building. One of the reasons why the second building took so long was the expansive basement built below. It was designed to be filled with water to work as a cooling system. Within just a few decades, this basement would be the scene of inhumane acts performed by the Japanese army during World War II. The army took over the building and used the basement as a dungeon, mentally and physically attacking prisoners before taking their lives. Both men and women lost their lives here, and it's said many of their spirits still haunt the basement, seeking revenge against those that killed them. Even after the war, the dark events continued. The Indonesian government took over the site only for Dutch colonists to try to reclaim the area. They snuck into the city using tunnels beneath Lawang Sewu and started a devastating battle where many native Indonesian people lost their lives. The Dutch would ultimately lose the fight. The building would house the National Railway Company for a number of years, but by the 1970s, it had almost entirely moved into new offices. Perhaps it was the stained glass windows which horrified the achievements of the original Dutch company. Perhaps it was a lack of funding for the upkeep of such an extravagant building. Maybe it was the memories of what had happened below their feet which manifested into disembodied cries and terrifying sectors. Whatever the case, the building was abandoned, and as nature took over, it became even more creepy looking. An urban legend emerged that not only were the ghosts of the prisoners still inside the building, but also a vampiric spirit of a woman who passed away in childbirth, or a pregnant woman who for some reason was unable to give birth. Locals warned visitors that going inside might invite one of these spirits to come back with them. But its reputation as the most haunted site in Indonesia has made it a popular tourist site. Number 1. Europe is littered with scary locations whose history wouldn't be out of place in a Game of Thrones episode. A priest murdered while giving a sermon, an allied family betrayed and poisoned at a celebrity dinner. Leap Castle in Ireland was the scene of all this and more, and its history has left scars on the location. Legend has it that Leap Castle was founded by the leader of the O'Bannon clan in the 15th century. Two brothers were arguing over who should lead the family. They agreed to both leap off the cliff where the castle now stands. It was supposedly an act of strength and bravery. Whoever survived would earn the leadership and the right to build the castle. With the castle founded on such a morbid act, the history didn't get any lighter. It was the scene of a number of battles where countless people lost their lives. By 1557, the castle passed into the hands of the O'Carrolls, the ruling clan that climbed to the top with ruthless tactics and a reputation for doing anything it took to dominate the other clans. Even members of the O'Carroll family weren't immune to the actions of their relatives. The most famous story about the castle is that of Tige and Thaddeus O'Carroll, two brothers who, like the O'Bannons, were fighting for leadership. Tige took the life of Thaddeus while his brother, a priest, was giving a sermon. The room where the act took place is now known as the Bloody Chapel. His ghost supposedly still lingers in the castle, but it isn't alone. In the northeast corner of the chapel is the entrance to an oubliette. It's a small chamber originally designed to store valuables, but the O'Carrolls modified it to be sort of a dungeon. The only entrance is a narrow hole which leads straight down into the room. Oubliette is a word derived from the French word for to forget, which is exactly what the O'Carrolls did to the enemies that were dumped there. Bodies of the McMahon family, who were poisoned at a victory feast, were among those to be dumped here. When the oubliette was discovered in the 1920s, 3 carts worth of remains were removed. The castle fell into the hands of the English Derby family and was largely destroyed by the IRA. The current owner is working to restore the castle. Among the spirits that still linger there today is one that makes Leap Castle one of the scariest locations in all of Europe. a disturbing elemental with facial features which have been aged by death and accompanied by the smell of rot. Some say the spirit was left there by those who knew the area had a concentration of spiritual energy. Others say it's the ghost of an O'Connell who died due to leprosy. Whatever or whoever it is, it's not something most would want to come face to face with. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to click that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.